Welcome back. We are now in our second unit on the Dark Ages. We talked about the glory, the brilliance, what made the Roman Republic and thus the Roman Empire so great. And then obviously we talked about its eventual demise due to political, social, economic, militaristic reasons, right, with those barbarian tribes and getting pushed farther and farther into the Western Roman Empire. So I'm going to try to make this short. The Germanic tribe that I'm going to be covering is the Franks. Your quiz will be about the Franks. So let's get to it. So, was it really that dark? What do the Dark Ages mean? This is actually an expression Francesco Petrarch, however you want to pronounce it, early Renaissance man used this term to describe the time period in Western Europe from around 500 to really the 1300s. And it's because they're comparing that Middle Age time period to the glory, the brilliance, the beauty, the light that was ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Then we have this kind of 1,000-year time period where things kind of regress, okay? It's like things get worse. Technology, medicine, government, order, structure, okay? Safety. We go backwards even though time progresses. So when they compare to the ancient Roman Empire or in modern day history to the Renaissance, this time period is regarded as dark. We did this in class, just some examples of the Roman government structures to what homes were built of straw and clay and mud, very agricultural. People are going to flee the cities due to the barbarian or Germanic tribes invading, and they're going to go live by the countryside. Medicine will also decline. It'll become more holistic. That's where you're going to see apothecaries. So when Rome falls, medicine, knowledge, technology, law, right? Law, organization, right? Structure and order, all of that falls with it. So what we had here is this Roman Empire and people that lived here, right, had the safety, the protection of living under the Roman Empire. Well, when the Western Roman Empire falls in 476, what will happen is these Germanic tribes or these native tribes of Europe, the Franks, the Saxons, the Jutes, the Scots, the Picts, the Vandals, the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Lombards, the Alemanni. There's so many different groups. These are native tribes of Europe. Okay, they have not yet converted to Christianity. Most will later on. And what they're doing is, now that the Western Roman Empire has fallen, don't forget the Eastern Roman Empire still exists. It's called the Byzantine Empire, but the glory and light of Rome still shines from the East. So these are all Germanic tribes carving out little pockets of their kingdom. This time period is really characterized by castles, feudalism, right? We'll talk about that. The church will build cathedrals, and then we'll have the Crusades. That's really going to be the High Middle Ages, our next unit. So when Rome falls, like I've been saying, knowledge, technology, culture, advancement, mathematics, science, running water, everything falls with it. So there's no protection. So what's going to happen in Western Europe is they're going to break up into a bunch of kingdoms, mini barbarian kingdoms, right, of these Germanic tribes. And people are going to look to the Catholic Church, right, the Christian Church, the Pope for leadership. There's no more Roman Empire, Roman government, Roman military. So how are the people going to protect themselves? So who are these barbarian or Germanic tribes? The term's used interchangeably, but Germanic kids always think just German. These are native tribes of Europe. The Angles and Saxons, right? They'll settle Anglo-Saxon, present-day England, right? The Britons, the Scots, the Jutes, the Picts, the Vandals, the Goths, the Ostrogoths. These are all, right, the Franks. These are native tribes of Europe, and they live communally, which means together. This is on the quiz. It's a vocab word, communally, or communalism, which we're going to learn about. It forms the basis of feudalism, okay, how society is divided. They're sharing their belongings. They're living together and sharing their belongings, okay? How do you become a leader of these barbarian tribes? To be the best, the biggest, strongest, the fastest, okay? You got to prove your worth. And right now, these tribes are pagan or polytheistic. We're going to talk about the Franks. Why? The Franks will help reorganize. When Rome falls, when Western Europe's a mess, it is the Franks that will become civilized, settle, and help restructure and reorganize Western Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire here. This is the Roman area known as Gaul. The Franks will settle in present-day France. The first Frankish king you're going to learn in class is known as Clovis. He'll take over, I think it's 484. He's like a 15-year-old soldier, and he is going to help unify these Frankish tribes and create this Frankish kingdom. He's very smart and strategic, though. He knows he is a Germanic warrior, right, or a barbarian, but he's going to adopt Roman customs and culture to appeal to the subjects living, right, in this area of Francia, or the Franks live, right? We call it France. 50 years ago, right, again, Rome falls in 476. 50 years prior to this, these people were living under the Romans. So we have Romans living here. So Clovis knows this. He adopts Roman customs and culture to appeal to those former Roman subjects, which are now his people. He takes it a step further. He converts to Christianity. He will be the first king of the Franks, really one of the first Germanic tribal warriors that will convert to Christianity. He does this for a battle tactic. It's really a political move. They were battling the Alemanni. I'll show you here. Here are the Alemanni, and he's trying to push further and further here, and so he will convert to Christianity again to appeal to his subjects and for political gain, political strategy. He definitely had a hard time with the commandment of thou shalt not kill. And so what Clovis will do, though, is he unites or unifies, bring together all of the separate Frankish tribes, and he creates this kingdom of the Franks. And by 511, it's quite impressive. Okay, it's pretty much modern-day France. So our modern Western European, right, where this European descent comes from, really comes from Clovis, mixing, right, his Judeo-Christian upbringing, since he converted, with Greco-Roman customs and culture that he'll adopt, ruling as a Germanic, right, or Frankish king. And it is with Clovis combining Judeo-Christian beliefs, right, converting, appealing to the Greco-Roman customs that the Roman Empire, Europe, right, has celebrated, and also ruling as a German. This is where, right, most native Western Europeans, right, get their basis or their background from. So Clovis will die at 511. He belonged to the Merovingian dynasty of the Franks. I'm now going to focus on the Carolingian. And the guy I'll talk about, we talked about him with the Battle of Tours. We're going to move on to Charles the Hammer Martel. Okay. Remember, Clovis will convert to Christianity, and it's early 500s. So now we have the Franks. They've settled, they're civilized, they're Christian, and they are going to help defend the church. So Charles the Hammer Martel is the military leader of the Franks. Really strong, like the nickname suggests, pretty intimidating figure. And he is going to team up with the church. The church will help give him land and money to train soldiers. He's going to be the first that creates the strong alliance with the church. Why? The church needs the Franks to help defend, okay, the incoming, right, Muslim Moors. And there's going to be this battle, the Battle of Tours in 732. So the church, right, the Pope is concerned about the spread of Islam, filtering into Spain, right, and heading, right, knocking on, right, Francia, or present-day France's door. This is scaring the Pope. So the Pope teams up with the Franks. Why? Pretty damn good fighters, guys. Sorry for my swears there, but they are one impressive, military tribe, and they've become more and more adept with military strategy, especially once they team up with the church and they get the funding and the lands to do so. So here's a quick little review. Remember that Islam is spreading into Europe through Spain. The group is the Muslim Moors, and it's the early 700s. Okay, here is that Francia, or that kingdom of the Franks. And the Battle of Tours, you can see here in purple, is, right, Islam filtering or heading further and further into Europe. So right here, right, in Tours, actually, there's going to be a battle. And what happens? You learned about this, so I'm going to fly through this. On the side of Christianity, Christianity and Islam come head to head in Tours, France. Charles Martel leads the Christian Franks. Abdul Rahman is the Islamic leader, right, of the Muslim Moors. Okay, the battle is fought. The Franks win. Charles Martel wins the battle. He is known as a champion, a defender of Christianity. And this is significant because it stops the spread of Islam from further entering into Europe. Exactly what the outcome the Pope and the Church wanted. And Islam remains isolated in Spain. It'll not head into France or other parts of Western Europe. So this is a big deal. Now we have the Franks called the champions for Christianity. Okay, so we have Clovis as the first Frank in the early 500s, converting to Christianity. 200 years later, right, by the time Charles the Hammer Martel is the military leader, they are basically the church's military, if you think about it. Okay, whenever the church or the Pope has any issues, he's going to call up, metaphorically speaking, the Franks, and the Franks are going to be there to help defend, right, Christianity, the church, and the Pope. So I just want to take this little side bit to tell you what's going on in Spain. So while maybe Europe is, in this dark ages where learning, advancement, technology and medicine, structure, order, law, society is kind of faltered, Spain is actually flourishing or succeeding, thriving under Islamic rule. So Muslim Spain has lots of achievements, lots of advancements, thanks to Muslim advancement education. They're going to help preserve Greco-Roman manuscripts and texts. They're going to help, you can thank them for algebra. So many advancements, right? So many great positive things we have thanks to many Muslim societies. And in some parts of Spain, Islamic rule will remain until 1492 when we have this Reconquista, or the reconquering of Spain, kicking out all Jews, all Muslims, and it'll be Catholic only. So it's just interesting that while Europe's in this dark ages, right, no running water and reading, what's that? Spain is thriving under, Islamic rule. Look at the beautiful, architectural feats of Granada. Okay, so Charles the Hammer Martel does not live forever. He will die and his son takes over. It is Frankish custom that the kingdom is divided amongst the son or sons. So Charles the Hammer Martel has a son named Pepin. And Pepin's nickname is the Short, although he really wasn't that short. And Pepin, just like Charles Martel, he's even more involved with the church. He's actually going to help reorganize and restructure the church, play a far more significant role. He's going to take over control over church lands. And he's concerned over the growing power of the church, especially when these Franks are basically like the church's military. So he does vow to protect the Pope, just like his father, right, Charles Martel, a champion for Christianity, winning the Battle of Tours. Now, the main significance of Pepin is really his two sons. He has two sons, Charlemagne and Carloman. And there's some interesting, juicy tidbits we'll talk about in class. Charlemagne is alleged, okay, there's no proof, but allegedly a bastard, which means that he has a different mother. Pepin, his father, had a mistress, and he was born out of wedlock. So it was not, right, his mom was not the queen. And Carloman, the younger brother, actually had greater rights to the Frankish kingdom. So Charlemagne and Carloman will co-rule, not talk, for I think all of like 3 or 4 years. They'll use their mom as the in-between or as like the messenger until one day Carloman mysteriously ends up dead. Dun, 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 dun. So, did Charlemagne kill his half-brother or his real brother, if you don't believe, the bastard stories? We don't know. Historians love to kind of hypothesize, but we really do not know. However, Charlemagne will be the only, right, he's not co-ruling now that Carloman's done, right, he's the only ruler, king of the Franks, and he will rule for over 47 years. So he becomes king, you'll see, right, in 768, this is his year of birth, right? He was born in 742, right? And he'll die in 814. He becomes king in 768, and he will rule for 47 years. Charlemagne literally translates to meaning Charles the Great. And boy, was he mighty. He had a physical, strong, intimidating presence, just like his grandfather, Charles Martel. So it's Charles Martel, Pepin. Pepin the Short had 2 sons, right? Charlemagne will be the sole ruler. And just like his grandfather, Charles Martel, Charlemagne had that strong, intimidating, right? Physical, scary, fierce presence. And he was one heck of a fighter. He is going to be the most important figure of European history, right? During all of the Middle Ages until we get to the Renaissance. Okay, so he is super important. He will help the kingdom of the Franks. He's going to expand or double the size of the kingdom. He's going to bring back education, and there'll be like this mini Renaissance. He will learn to read and try to write himself, promoting education. So he's facing a lot of hardships during, the time he takes over, and against all odds, he gets it done. So here's 2 huge accomplishments of Charlemagne's. The first, doubling the size of the Frankish kingdom. Okay, and he wants to unite all. So he will double the size of the Frankish kingdom. Okay, quite the accomplishment. He will do this by going to war with the Saxons and the Lombards. Okay, and the reading on Charlemagne will talk about that. So he will go to war with the Saxons of the north and the Lombards of the south, defeating them and doubling the size of his empire. Second major feat, okay? He brings back, right, this emphasis of education again. Schools start to be created and churches. There's architecture will kind of go back to the arches, right, or the old school Romanesque style. So we have this little mini rebirth. Renaissance means rebirth. So we have this mini Renaissance or rebirth of education, learning, advancement. Charlemagne himself will learn to read. Why is this called the Carolinian Renaissance? Because Charlemagne, right, think of it as his last name is Carolinian. It is his family dynasty. It starts under Charlemagne and continues under his son, Louis, that, right, creates this little mini Renaissance or this rebirth, this revival of education and achievement again. So pretty important. This will absolutely be on a quiz. The third major accomplishment is he's going to save the Pope not once, but twice. So you can see that big Frankish kingdom here, doubling the size. How? By defeating the Saxons and the Lombards. So the third major accomplishment is that Charlemagne, like Charles Martel and the Franks, have come to the defense of the Pope. He will do so not once, but twice. The first time will happen in 799. The Pope needs saving. Let me go back to the map here. Here's the Pope living in the Papal States. And this time it's the Lombards that are attacking. And the Franks, led by Charlemagne, they come in, they crush the Lombards, expand their territory, and save the Pope. Second time is that Roman nobility in Rome was actually rebelling. There was a mini uprising, and Charlemagne and the Franks came in and crushed it, saving the Pope not once, but twice. Charlemagne, you're kind of a big deal. This happens in 799. So how will he be rewarded? Pretty big deal. He is going to be rewarded. Pope Leo III, he is the Pope that needed saving, and not once but twice. So Pope Leo III, as a sign of gratitude, he declares Charlemagne Emperor of Rome, or the Holy Roman Emperor. He does this, right, as a sign of gratitude and wanting to acknowledge the power of Charlemagne as that defender of the Pope and Christianity. And he declares him the Holy Roman Emperor on Christmas Day, December 25th. The year is 800, where St. Peter's Cathedral or Basilica in Rome. This reinforces the Franks' tight relationship, friendship, alliance with the church. Now, why is this crazy? Because a Christian, right, the Catholic Pope, is declaring a Germanic, right, or the Frankish king, Holy Roman Emperor. Meanwhile, in the East, the Eastern Roman Empire, they consider themselves, right, the Byzantine Empire, they consider themselves Roman. There's a Roman emperor there. So this is going to enrage the Byzantine or the Eastern Roman Empire. And the Byzantine emperor there is like, what? I'm the Holy Roman Emperor. Like, what? You're calling this Germanic, this barbarian who, is trying to read and settle down and civilized. He's now Holy Roman Emperor. So this is a huge deal. It's basically declaring to all of Western Christendom, all of Western Europe, that, okay, the Franks, they are the defenders, the champions of Christianity, and Charlemagne is the Holy Roman Emperor in the West. Kind of a big deal. Here's that crowning. Charlemagne's capital was in Aachen, present-day Germany. And as you can see with the architectural features, right, Charlemagne and his reign, that 47-year reign, the Carolingian Renaissance, doubling the size of the empire, saving Pope Leo III twice, and being crowned Holy Roman Emperor. What a guy, what a reputation. So Charlemagne and his rule, his regime, his reign was really seen as a little bit of bright light in that dark age. And it helped kind of combat that cultural decay because he reinforced education and reading and learning and advancement, math, science, architecture. Other pictures. That's present day. Okay, so why is this a big deal? Going back to that Holy Roman Emperor. Because it's only going to keep deepening the divide or the eventual schism, the Great Schism of 1054. We're not there yet. We're in the 800s, early 800s. It's going to deepen the divide between the Western Europe, led by the Franks right now, and the Eastern Europe, or the Eastern Roman Empire, that Byzantine Empire. So it's really deepening the divide between Western Europe and the Eastern Roman Empire, or the Eastern Roman world. But it did revive the idea of a united Christian world, which the Pope was really trying to celebrate, and that's one of the reasons for the crusade. Doesn't work. Okay, Charlemagne does not live forever. He dies, and he has a son, Louis. Louis the Pious. Pious means very holy, very devout. Louis the Pious, unlike his father, wasn't very intimidating, and he was more concerned with religion, spirituality, right? God, connection to God, than fighting and defending the empire, this kingdom, right? His father just spent his 47-year regime doubling. So he's lacking that warrior spirit. Very quickly, they're going to face invasion. The borders are going to start to crumble. He's far too consumed with religion. And that's why not everyone, hereditary rule, not everyone's cut out to be a leader. Okay, clearly Louis the Pious, he would rather read and study, religion and the Bible than lead the country. Okay, what country is this? Francia. Okay, or the kingdom of the Franks. I shouldn't say country, I should say kingdom. Okay. So when he dies, so things start to get bad. There's economic problems, invasion under Louis. But the Carolingian Renaissance will continue because, again, reading, God, religion, that's all he's focused on. Now, Louis the Pious has 3 sons. So when Louis dies, again, Frankish custom, the kingdom is going to be divided amongst his 3 sons. Lothair, that's an awesome name, Louis, or Louis the German, and Charles the Bald. Those are their names, I know. So the kingdom is given to the 3 sons, and what do you know? The 3 sons fight and fight and fight. Why? Well, do I have a picture of, here we go. So they're going to fight over land, money, and power. What else? Okay, they're going to fight over who has, the greater part of the kingdom. Again, the Frankish kingdom is now going to be divided into 3 mini kingdoms, 1 for each son. And they're going to fight or quarrel, and their mom, once again, going to have to be the messenger. Finally, in 843, a peace treaty amongst the 3 sons, okay, of Louis the Pious will be signed. This takes place in Verdun. Okay, that's why it's called the Treaty of Verdun. And again, the three sons, Lothair, Charles, and Louis, they agree to stop fighting. They sign this peace treaty, and what it does is it officially divides their Frankish kingdom into three specific boundary, right, mini kingdoms, and each son is given, right, their part, their third of the Frankish kingdom. Why is this important? Because this Treaty of Verdun is going to take that huge kingdom of the Franks that really their grandfather spent his life building, and it's going to divide it into three mini kingdoms, and it starts to create the modern day boundary lines of Italy, France, and Germany. Okay, so you guys can see here, Charles the Bald will get this part here, right? East Francia. He was the youngest. Louis the German will get right here, okay? West Francia. And Lothair will get Middle Francia. Now, does the treaty work? Do they stop fighting? What do you guys think? Nope. So by 843, unfortunately, because that kingdom is divided into three separate mini kingdoms and these guys are just fighting about it, even with the peace treaty, it does not work. Basically, what will happen is Middle Francia is going to cease to exist. West Francia will actually get smaller, and East Francia will eventually become the Holy Roman Empire. Confusing, I know. So the treaty does not work, and by 843, the kingdom crumbles, which is really frustrating. Okay, we can blame the grandsons of Charlemagne due to the division of land, division of power, and the constant fighting. Additionally, around 800 is where we have the Vikings, and the Vikings are going to explore. They're going to set out. We're going to do a homework assignment, a little DBQ that shows their exploration routes. But these Vikings are going to, as you can see, they're going to attack, right, the kingdoms of the Franks here in Normandy. They're going to attack the Anglo-Saxon England here. You can see all of the various routes that they took. Now, by the 800s, these Vikings were attacking Western Europe, and they were just going alongside, coastal cities and raiding, pillaging, plummeting, stealing, plundering, taking all of the gold, the treasure that they could. They then traded what they stole, getting money, becoming merchants. And Europe, especially France, West Francia in particular, there's so many rivers. So the Vikings and their ships, which were thin and designed as such, they could sail easily to these coastal cities. Because of the Vikings, okay, it's going to push the Franks and other groups, whether it's England, right, or Spain, to militarize, which will create feudalism. Feudalism is how society will be divided and people are going to protect each other. I'll explain it. It's all in the next section. So it's the Vikings and the invasion of these Viking invaders that will cause the Franks. How do they reorganize, right, Western Europe? Through feudalism, through that kingdom of the Franks. And these Vikings are going to be pretty annoying and worrisome for many Europeans, whether we're talking, England, Ireland, Scotland, France, Spain, Italy. Again, you can see the Scandinavian settlements. So in green here, you can see they've settled a little bit here. Normandy. This is actually going to be an area. Norman means Northman. So this is a Viking settlement right here, Normandy. It was given to a guy named Rollo. You don't need to know that. Okay, so we're going to have like a little Viking Scandinavian settlement, Normandy, in West Francia. Right, or that kingdom of the Franks right here. So, last but not least, the legacy of the Franks. So they're going to help create that modern Western European man. I don't care too much about this because kids usually struggle with this. Here's what I want you to know, the major takeaways. Okay, really the major three. They're going to preserve Greco-Roman, right, traditions and customs. They do that with the modern Western man, right? They're going to reorganize Western European society after the fall of Rome, right? With that Frankish kingdom and through feudalism. And more importantly, they're going to create this strong alliance, right? And there's going to be this growing power, right? Allegiance, alliance with the church. And the church, you're going to see, while the Frankish kingdom crumbles in 843, the church will continue to lead in the 900s, the 1000s, 1100s. 1200s will reach the height of the Catholic Church's power. So I'm almost... All right, there we have it. All under 30 minutes. I hope you got something out of that. Bye-bye.